Hey, welcome back, everybody. Of course, you know me. My name is Dr. Keith McNally. This is another edition of Coach's Corner. I'm going to love saying this. I'm here with Kathy Tagenel. Did I get that even close? Because it's
Good enough.
okay, good enough. Because I really do make an effort because I speak with people all over the world and with Bob Burg. It's good to have you in conversation today, and it's good to have you on the show. And now I'm going into this conversation rather cold because I don't know a whole lot about what you do. And that's why I want to have this conversation. Like I said earlier, offline, is that your names get dropped a lot in conversations that I do have, especially with specific people who are in probably your network. But I want to get to know more about that, what you do, and why it's so powerful. So I don't mind who goes first and how we get into this conversation. Let's go ahead and have it.
Ms. Tagenel?
Well, I've had the honor and pleasure of working with Bob Burg for almost 15 years now, helping to build this go-giver movement. He had this amazing idea for a book. He had all the principles in his endless referral system that he had been teaching since the early 90s. And then in 2000s, he realized he wanted to have a parable to really emotionally connect people to the principles. And then Bob teamed up with an amazing writer, John David Mann, and the two of them, produced the amazing little red book, The Go-Giver. And so together we've been helping to spread this movement and message worldwide.
Well,
Yeah, and Kathy has Dr. Keith. It's great to be with you, first of all, and I thank our mutual friend Noemi for introducing us. She's absolutely a treat. Yeah, Kathy has been really running the show since 2008. She has really been the one that's been the branding brain and positioning authority behind this entire movement. Where through books and through seminars and through retreats and online business, various courses, we've really been able to fortunately take this message worldwide. And she is just such a joy to work with, and really again, the brains, the person that most people don't see until they get to know us, then they know who's really responsible for this.
well, you both of you said that this is a mission in so many ways. So what exactly is the mission?
Well, Kathy often says it's creating the entrepreneurial spirit for the world, and really doing things with a culture of excellence. And she's put together just a beautiful set of thoughts and principles for entrepreneurial companies, as well as the individuals themselves, the leadership, to really be able to, and we like to say, if we take the 5 laws of the Go-Giver, the parable that John David Mann and I co-authored, and the five laws, or the laws of value, compensation, influence, authenticity, and receptivity. It really comes down to these 5 summations, and that is creating value, touching lives, building relationships, being real, and staying open. So basically, whether you're coming from a position of leadership, sales, entrepreneur, wherever you happen to be, or someone working within the company, when your absolute, complete laser focus is on providing immense value to others, right? You've created that benevolent context to also be able to receive. And it's that combination of the two which really makes it happen.
So is there a magic wand or a secret sauce, as I hear people say, as to how that really works? Or is it like, do I need to go to therapy and then become this great person for you to receive me into your group in order to do that? Or how does that work? How does that work? Because it sounds like really good stuff, but it also sounds intimidating all at the same time.
Well, it really starts with the book, which is why Bob felt so strongly about writing The Go-Giver. And that is, reading that book, the message will it resonates with people, and they emotionally connect to these 5 laws and the principles. And then it's really a matter of just starting to apply them in your life. And they really, to me, they're the simplicity on the other side of complexity. They really have brought it all together, and these are timeless principles. And Bob and John like to say that it's nothing new, but what they did is how they brought it together into what we call the go-giver way. And as Bob said, it's as simple as focusing on creating value, touching lives, building relationships, being real, and staying open. And then, through the things that we do, we help people really unpack that. And, through different exercises, through our workshops, through our retreats, our masterminds, through the Go-Giver Success Alliance, which is our online community for anyone that this message resonates, who's really wanting to connect with fellow go-givers from around the world to continue to grow and learn and be successful together. I think that's how we really create change in the world.
I totally agree with that. And to make this even better is people relate to stories a lot. And so do you have like this story that, from one of your members or from either of you to kind of share with the audience today that says, this is on a very practical, very personal way, this is how it works for either me or somebody that you know?
Well,
Want to share the Jeff and Lisa collaboration, or?
oh yeah, that's a fun one. 2 of our members, one is Jeff West, who for 20 years was a leader with Aflac, both in sales and then with sales leadership. I mean, this guy was a top producer. He was one of my, for his state, because he was a state sales coordinator in Texas, was one of my first Aflac clients back when I was speaking, and I was speaking for a bunch of Aflac groups. So I got to know Jeff. And Lisa Wilbur is the was 4th. Now she's 5th. I always tell her she's slipping, but she's the 5th leading Avon consultant in the world.
Wow.
So these are 2 very high-powered people, and both of them are wonderful leaders, and both of them are just people whose giving spirit, who is just so focused on bringing value to everyone they meet. Well, they both joined the Kathy's and my Go-Giver Success Alliance when we put it together a couple of years ago. They didn't know each other, but on one of the meetings, so we call them coffee and conversation at Rachel's, because Rachel was one of the characters in the Go-Giver who ended up having a coffee shop, not coffee shops. What would you call them?
Well, they were shops. They were cafes.
Yeah, they were cafes.
We created phenomenal coffee. Let's put it that way.
Exactly. Yes. And so it's coffee and conversation at Rachel's. And Lisa was telling a story that she had dyed her hair blue for a couple of reasons, but one of them was she was talking about being at the store and and somebody in front of her in line said something to someone, and Lisa felt herself judging that person. And then Lisa said to herself, well, said the lady with the blue hair, as though someone with blue hair shouldn't be judging, someone else. So Jeff sent her an instant message, or I guess within the chat, a private message that just said, that's a great title for a book. We should do that together. Right. And Jeff had already written actually a business parable, because now after his distinguished career with Aflac, he started teaching sales. He also wrote a business parable, and that won an award. And it ended up that he and Lisa got together and they wrote a business parable called "Said the Lady with the Blue Hair," and it was phenomenal. In fact, it won an award as well. And cool. So that's just, some of the collaboration that can take place in the community. So that's just one example, but these things happen on a constant basis. It's a wonderful community.
I love that story. And I don't know if this is a reality just yet, but I think you kind of just tapped on something, because you said coffee and conversation with Rachel.
At Rachel's, yeah.
Okay, or at Rachel's. And that may be part of a book, but that sounds like a podcast if I've never heard one. I mean, that sounds exactly
like a great idea.
A title of a podcast, yeah. Coffee and Conversation at Rachel's.
At Rachel's, yeah.
That is fantastic. So what do members really so given the story, what do members really gain from joining this collaborative effort, adding value to people's lives? And I hope that through all of the conversations that I've had with people for the past 2 years, that in my own small way, maybe I've added value to their lives. But yours is on a broader scale. So what does that look like?
Well, first, I'm sure you've added a lot of value to people during your conversations. This is just set up a little bit more formally in that it's an online mentorship community, but it's not Bob Burg and Kathy Tagenel who are the mentors. We're more the facilitators. The mentors are everyone, because we've just got a fantastic group of people. And so there's a lot of collaboration, sure, but there's also a lot of strategizing. There's a lot of problem solving. I mean, we're talking about the real world, and business is certainly not a straight line, right?
Right.
And so, yeah, it's just a lot of people who getting together who are all in the key is everyone is focused on bringing value to everyone else. And when that's the case, now you've got the ultimate, 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, 1 + 1 = 10.
I like it.
And
You've
it's
both,
really,
go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to add, first, it's really about connection. People who read the book and resonate, they want to find other people who are go-givers, and sometimes they struggle to find that, especially, people who are in business for themselves. They don't have a lot of other people they can run ideas by. So the community provides that connection with people worldwide. And it's a sense of community. They're belonging to something greater than themselves. We're all committed to changing the way business is conducted. We're all committed to living our lives this way, but also doing business this way. And we're looking for people that we can collaborate with in what we're doing.
So I see a lot of books behind Bob, whether virtual or real, I'm not quite sure.
They're real. They're
Yeah,
real.
he read them all.
Where's the book that you keep on talking about? Where is it?
Oh, the
The
Go-Giver.
Go-Giver?
Yeah, we got to see it. This is a visual podcast. Let's see it. And she said it was the Little Red Book. So it's
Yeah.
exactly right. So,
Right.
so talk to me about the book. How did it come?
Well,
Like, what's the brainstorm behind that? Because you're talking a lot of things about Napoleon Hill and the mastermind principle. And it sounds like you've taken those ideas and said, these are the most important, or these are the ones that resonate. And this is how it works. And this is how we're going to make it work. Talk to me about all that.
well, as Kathy said, none of the principles are new, right?
Right.
And I remember the late Jim Rohn, who was just one of the greatest business philosophers as well as entrepreneurs of all time. He used to say, "Beware the person who comes to you promising new fundamentals." Right? They don't exist. And so yeah, there's nothing new about these principles. When John and I got together to begin writing this, one of the things we did, because John he was a fantastic entrepreneur, a wonderful entrepreneur, and he's a just great writer and storyteller, and he has, and I have, in our respective careers, studied successful people or students of success. Yeah, Kathy is too. But we wrote this, I think, a couple of years before I met Kathy. But so we sort of went over and said, what are the things that successful people throughout time, whenever there have been market economies, what is it that sustainably successful people have done, whether they knew it or not? Right? Because some people did things intuitively, didn't even know why they were doing it or what they were doing. Other people learn these things. So what is it that they did that every sustainably successful person did? And we came up with these 5 principles, 5 laws. Not at the same time. We like to say the laws began to write themselves as we were going through the book, but we knew the general direction we were heading, but the laws kind of named themselves as we went along after the first couple. And so really, it's a business parable about a guy named Joe, and Joe is a young but he's a good guy, but he's young, up and coming, ambitious, aggressive, and he means well, but his focus is really on the wrong place, and that is on him,
Oh,
right? His
yeah.
focus is on himself, and that's really holding him back. It's all about Joe and who owes Joe what and what, and Joe deserves this. And he meets a mentor by the name of Pindar and several other people who Pindar will introduce him to. And he comes to learn that shifting your focus, that's really the key part. Shifting your focus from getting to giving. And when we say giving in this context, we simply mean constantly and consistently providing immense value to others, understanding that doing so is not only a more fulfilling way of conducting business, it's the most financially profitable way as well. And it's at that point that he starts to see things happening, and really that's it's a very simple story. That's what it's about. But again, John David Mann's immense writing skills is what made the story and the characters really pop.
I like that you mentioned the word sustainability, and you mentioned it a couple of times because I've used it in my own writing. I wrote a book. It's called Walking the Path of Leader's Journey, and one of the foundational elements is how do you sustain those connections? How do you sustain momentum? Even how do you sustain life? Because their whole journey had to cross over a mountain just to find where they belonged in the world. And so I really do appreciate that. With a little bit amount of time that we have left, oh, did you want to add something to that? Because I want to transition really quick. Okay, so with the amount of time that we have left, I want you to offer the audience, those who are watching, those who are listening, those key things that what's going to happen the day, the minute, the hour that they pick up your book. What's going to be that first transformation? It could be anything. I want to hear from both of you. And then what's going to keep them digging into the book time and time again, because they're going to get additional, and as the word that you say, value. They're going to get additional. I think it's a breath of fresh air every time that you pick up something and you know it's valuable, you know it's good. What is that? What are you going to give them?
I don't know, Kathy, what do you, I mean, I think it's individual in nature.
Well,
I think
name it. Yeah, let it be. Yeah.
Well, what we hear most often is just how it's changed their life. For a lot of people, this is how they have lived their life or wanted to live their life, but they don't get that validation out in the external world. But they read this book and it's like you said, a breath of fresh air. And it's like, it is possible. This is the right way, to live life. And then they immediately want to reach out and talk to, find other people. The book, we sold over 1 million copies, and it's because people give this book as a gift and they want to share it with the people in their life. So it's been quite the phenomenon.
Bob, add something to that, please.
Well, I remember when we started receiving the first wave of emails from people who I guess you'd say the initial adopters. And it was from the already successful people. It wasn't from the people who needed to read the book. It was from people who had been living their lives and conducting their business this way long before the Go-Giver ever came about. And what they said was that this is how I did it. These principles are what I use to build my business. But nobody believes me, right? Because remember, what are we brought up on in terms of in our culture from upbringing, environment, schooling, news media, television, movies? It's to make it, you've got to be horrible and awful and just focus on the money, and it doesn't matter who you hurt, and it's win lose, right? And that's what people believe when they grow up with all those messages. But the sustainably successful people, not that there aren't some baddies out there, but by and large, the sustainably successful people have done it through finding a way to bring immense value to others. And so they started using this book as third-party credibility. People wouldn't believe them. The people in their organizations or companies or whatever wouldn't believe them. So they started buying our book and giving it to them and so forth. Then the second wave, though, were the people who read the book, and yes, Kathy, I love what she said. It gave them permission to be themselves.
Yeah.
Because they saw, this is how you do it. And by the way, in terms of the go-giver way, there's nothing about this that is way out there or woo woo, or this totally ties into human nature. No, when I speak at sales conferences, the first thing I'll say is nobody's going to buy from you because you have a quota to meet, right? They're not going to buy from you because you need the money. They're not even going to buy from you just because you're a nice person. They're going to buy from you because they believe they'll be better off by doing so than by not doing so. And really, that when you think about it, it's the only reason why anyone should buy from you or from me or for anyone. But the great thing is, for the person who has a heart for service and who wants to genuinely add value to others, this is great news, because that's what people want to do, right? People get into business typically because, especially entrepreneurs, because they have some kind of mission. They want to add value to the world. They want to be, as Kathy said earlier, be part of something bigger than themselves. And and this is why John David Mann and I, in the follow-up to the book, because there's 4 books in the series, actually a 5th, because John and his wife wrote one as well. But in the second book in the series, we say that money is simply an echo of value. It's the thunder to values lightning, which means nothing more than that the value that you're providing another human being must be your focus. The value is simply the money you receive is simply a natural result of the value you've provided.
There can be no better way of ending this conversation with that very statement. So we're going to end it here. I love it. Bob, Kathy, thank you so much for joining me in this conversation. And when this gets published, we need to get everybody to buy your book because it's going to add value to their lives. This has been another edition of Coach's Corner, and I'll see you next time. Take care.